Look, human capacity is the absolute bottleneck in your organization right now. But honestly, the way we've been trying to measure and fix it is fundamentally flawed. In this explainer, we're going to look at the exact mechanism that's draining your workforce's cognitive performance, why the tools you're currently paying for just can't fix it, and how to actually diagnose these hidden costs inside your teams.
Burnout is a symptom. The bandwidth tax is the cause. That right there is the core thesis we really need to understand today. You see, burnout is rarely sudden. It's just operational strain left unmanaged. For way too long, we've treated burnout like a personal failure or maybe some mysterious seasonal flu, when in reality, it is a highly predictable systemic load that simply goes undiagnosed. Burnout is just the symptom you're seeing. The bandwidth tax is the actual literal cost being paid by your people every single day.
Let's jump into the first section here, the category error. Organizations have spent decades treating operational strain as a feelings problem. Think about the usual interventions: engagement surveys, wellness portals, offsite team building, the classic pizza parties. We deploy all of these to try and boost morale. But here's the thing. Operational strain has always been a systems problem tied to finite cognitive bandwidth. These traditional interventions weren't just insufficient. They were the entirely wrong category of tool. You simply cannot pizza party your way out of a systemic cognitive deficit.
Okay, let's really dive into this because this comparison is absolutely crucial. On one side, you have wellness. Wellness is an initiative. It's reactive, right? It measures the symptom after the damage is already done. On the other side, we have bandwidth. Bandwidth is human infrastructure. It requires continuous clarity systems to diagnose the actual mechanism beneath all that strain. Leaders have been deploying these reactive feelings-based interventions against a strictly finite resource. Wellness apps treat the symptom. Bandwidth diagnostics actually measure the mechanism.
Which brings us to the AI era urgency.
So that category error we just talked about, it honestly went undetected for years because the cost was sort of absorbable. Before AI, your workforce competed against other equally taxed human workforces, so your relative competitive position was preserved. But today, that margin just doesn't exist anymore. In an AI-augmented economy, every single cognitive deficit your team carries is now measured directly against AI-augmented competitors. And in some cases, you're competing against AI directly. The acceptable threshold for human cognitive performance has completely collapsed. Measurement is no longer optional.
Now let's look at the evidence base behind this.
13, that is a massive number. 13 IQ points is the cognitive cost of carrying financial strain, according to a landmark study. Carrying that financial pressure is literally the equivalent of losing one full night of sleep every single working day. Now, just imagine multiplying a 13-point IQ drop across your entire leadership team, or your sales floor, or your frontline crew. That is the bandwidth tax being paid in real time through poor decisions, compromised judgment, and entirely missed signals. Let's look at another number, 6,271. A major study of over 6,000 adults across 4 countries revealed that time poverty isn't just a calendar problem, it's a massive performance problem. When discretionary time is lost, the recovery hours that we humans absolutely require simply collapse. And when recovery collapses, high-value, complex work immediately falters. Which leads us to this frankly staggering figure, 4.7 times. High-exhaustion workers don't necessarily call in sick. No, they show up, but they operate with a 4.7x productivity loss compared to low-exhaustion workers. This is presenteeism at its worst. They are physically in the building, they're on the Zoom call, but their cognitive capacity is entirely depleted. So how do we actually diagnose this? We use the 4 core systems framework. The bandwidth tax is actually paid across 4 very specific systems. First is money. Like we just saw, financial strain creates this massive bandwidth drag on focus and everyday decisions. Second is time. Discretionary time loss leads straight to a total collapse in cognitive recovery. Third is well-being. Sustained emotional load quietly erodes the foundation underneath every other system. We don't just ask if someone is fine, we have to find the actual leak. And finally, environment. Physical and digital friction. It's pretty simple. Disordered environments produce disordered output.
The key takeaway here is that these aren't isolated issues. All 4 of these systems converge on a single finite mechanism, and that's cognitive bandwidth. Strain in any one of these systems silently taxes the others, quietly degrading judgment, follow-through, and overall workforce capacity. If someone on your team is overloaded by environmental friction, they literally have less cognitive bandwidth to manage complex, time-sensitive tasks. It is one tax paid across 4 different systems.
Now, let's talk about the privacy guardrails, because we absolutely need an honest data foundation here. If we want employees to honestly tell us where their bandwidth is failing, confidentiality cannot just be some compliance afterthought. It is the absolute foundation of honest data. To guarantee their safety, we use a minimum cohort threshold. Basically, no organizational signal is aggregated or shown to leadership unless at least 5 participants from a specific team have submitted it. It ensures complete individual anonymity. It turns what could feel like corporate surveillance into a genuinely safe collaborative diagnostic.
And because you establish that trust, you get incredibly clear leadership intelligence. While the employee goes through a confidential process and gets their own personal action plan, the Clarity Compass, leadership receives the Bandwidth Audit Report. This is not another fluffy engagement score. It's a brand new lens showing exactly where the tax is being paid, broken down by department and by the specific system: time, money, well-being, or environment. You finally move from just guessing to knowing exactly where your operational drag is located.
Moving on to the systemic solution. We execute 3 strategic moves to translate those individual signals into a permanent structural shift. Step 1, deploy the Clarity Compass. This guides every employee from a state of crisis to immediate stabilization with a personalized plan. Step 2, leadership receives the Bandwidth Audit Report, giving you that clear, anonymized intelligence on where the systemic strain actually is. And Step 3, implement the sprints. These are facilitated workshops that actually operationalize bandwidth reallocation across the whole team. 3 moves, 1 shift, diagnosis to insight to a permanent shift. Look, this isn't just another lunch and learn or some superficial wellness workshop. You are embedding an entirely new operating system for managing decisions, workload, and human capacity. You're basically installing proactive human infrastructure.
The bandwidth tax is being paid by your organization either way. The only real question is whether you're measuring it or just letting it quietly erode your competitive edge. Download your initial bandwidth diagnostic template at the link below to see your team's hidden tax. Because in an AI-augmented economy, the cost of not measuring your human capacity just compounds daily. Ask yourself, are you prepared to lead a team running on empty against competitors who aren't?